Hello and welcome to today's IGTV, how to support your teenager through a relationship breakup. And I don't know about you, but you're probably feeling like your heart is the one who's breaking and ripped out because watching your teenager go through this is extremely tough. And your first reaction, primal reaction, right, is to take away that pain. Is to fix them, to stop the hurt somehow, stop the train wreck, whatever that is. I totally understand. I totally get it. Unfortunately, probably isn't going to work, and it actually might have some negative impact to it. So I'm going to give you some tips to help your teenager through that relationship breakup, whether it's a platonic relationship, a romantic relationship. The tools are similar so that you can connect with your teenager through this process and help them to heal as opposed to hinder this process, because it can be a little bit challenging to stick with. All right, my name is Allie Payne. I'm a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach, and I've been helping parents and teens to end the emotional blow-ups, the painful disconnections, stressful silences, yelling and nagging, to create a relationship that is built on trust and respect with improved communication and, more importantly, increased connection. For the last 14 years, and I am excited to share today's topic with you. But first, I want to remind you, if you are not already registered in my upcoming 5 days challenge, 5 days to a better relationship with your teen. It only runs every 3 months-ish or so. It starts on Monday, the 20th. So I want to make sure that you get in on that. You can hit the link in my bio here, or you can go to my website, alliepayne.com, to get in on my 5-day challenge. You don't want to miss it. Thousands of parents just like you have taken it, and I promise you it will be the most fun and connecting, encouraging, supporting 5 days. And everything stays in a private Facebook group, all the videos, downloads, resources for over a month. So you can also do it at your own pace. Don't feel rushed. Don't add another thing to your plate. I just want to make sure that I see you there. So get in on my 5-day challenge. Link in bio or on my website, alliepayne.com. All right, so let's jump in to supporting your teenager through a relationship breakup, because this is not easy. So again, your primal need is probably to remove their pain, and that can come across as really invalidating because you're trying to fix them. I get it, normal. The number one thing I need you to do is to validate and empathize. And I know you're like, Allie, you say this in every one of your videos. Yeah, I do, because healing requires validating and empathy in order to heal. That's an exit, emotions coming out, being processed. Otherwise, if you're trying to fix, the impact is that their emotions are stuffed, and it's called, they emotionally abandoned a part of them by not releasing those feelings. And that doesn't, well, first of all, it creates trauma, it builds up in the body. By allowing your teenager to have this pain, this struggle, this anger, you help them build resilience. But more importantly, you become a safe person for them to express this with, and that is what leads to better connection. You become the safe place where they can express all of their sadness, all of their anger, and you make it okay. So here's what validating and empathy look like, in case that you haven't heard or aren't familiar with it. A lot of this was not demonstrated for us as kids. So validating is making them right in how they feel. Yes, I can imagine how hurt you are. I would feel angry too. Yes, that was awful. You didn't deserve to be treated like that. You deserve to be treated much better. I'm so sorry that this is happening for you. That's validating. Empathy is one of the cornerstones of empathy is taking their perspective. So if it were you, okay, it's like walking in someone else's shoes. You could say, oh my gosh, I would be heartbroken too. I would be really angry too. But if they're sad, keep your voice like sad. You mirror their emotion. And if they're angry, which is part of the grieving process, I believe if you look up, the part of the grieving process is first is anger. Okay. The second is denial, like this isn't really happening. Then there's sadness. deep sadness. Then there's bargaining. Like, how do you get it all back? I'll just do this and this. Like, how do you go back to the beginning, which we can't go back in time. And then if it's gone well, then there's healing. So it's kind of 5 steps of grieving, and your teenager's probably in one of those. So I understand being around an angry teenager, not very fun. But when you validate and empathize with their anger by saying, I get you're really angry, and that's totally okay. Would you want to talk about it? Which means you listen. Because this entire process relies on you listening, and that's it. Not judging, fixing, correcting, or letting them know they're not doing it right or your way or whatever, okay? It's their grieving process. And also grieving is one of the most non-linear human processes because it's so emotional. So I'm saying, they're not gonna go like anger to, I can't remember the next step, I just lost it. Anger, denial, sadness, bargaining. They're not gonna do it like that. It like jumps all around back and forth, and there's no time frame. There is no set time frame for grieving. So you having an expectation, it's going to be linear, and like, aren't you done this yet? Like, I mean, come on, this has been going, no. Grieving can go on for a long time. What I can promise you is the better that you can listen and be that safe place for your teenager to express their sadness and anger with, they're more likely to go through the healing and come out the other side, as opposed to suppress or deny any of those feelings, okay? So I want you to validate and empathize the most that you possibly can, because you can't fix them and you can't take away their pain. So I want to tell you a little quick story about what happened for me in a breakup. I had a relationship. It was my first serious relationship. I was like 15. I'd known this guy for a couple years already when we started dating. He was friends with my sister. He was the same age as my sister, so he was two grades ahead of me. I was in grade 10, he was in grade 12. And we had an awesome relationship. One of the foundations of our relationship was laughter. We literally gutted ourselves laughing all the friggin' time. And so I came from an emotionally abusive home. And so for me, a place as an extrovert, a place where I could laugh and things felt fun was like, it was like a spa for my spirit. Like things were light and funny. And like good funny, not really sarcastic, like really serious, amazing humor. And I loved that part of this relationship. Not only that, but I didn't feel loved at home and I didn't feel respected. And I felt loved and respected by him. So I was quite drawn to this relationship, you see. So fast forward 2 years, things started going off the rails a little bit. There was like things just got a little bit sketchy. I started to get super controlling, like the 8-arm octopus with all the suction cups. Like I was that girlfriend. Totally I was, because I was so insecure about who I was and the fact that I wasn't actually lovable, which was my truth. And he was, he'd graduated 2 years before. And so, he was meeting other friends. He was working, but there was this one girl friend he had that I had a lot of questions about, and things were getting a little weird. And sure enough, things started to show up, like pictures of them together, stuff that it was like, no, this is weird. And I went and talked to her, and because I'm really bold that way, and was like, what you're doing is wrong. Like, what you're doing is really crappy, and I'm not stupid. Anyway, one day soon after that, 2 months before I was about to graduate, I was driving home from school, and I drove past his house on my way home from school, and I noticed his car was home, and I don't know, something just triggered in me, and it was like, you should go there. So I went to his house, and I opened the door, and there they are doing the naked horizontal tangle right in there. Yeah, so I walked in on them sleeping together. This is my first serious relationship, almost 2 years, and 2 months before my prom. The day that most girls look forward to from the time they're like 8. Because I grew up at a time where there wasn't any other grad. There was no elementary school or junior high grad. It was senior high, like graduation. Everything, I was devastated, absolutely devastated. My mom was never shown compassion or love or nothing. So she did not know how to, she felt very sad for me, but she didn't know how to comfort me. So I spent most of my time at my best friend's house with her and her mom, and they literally just sat and listened to me. And I mean snot, like snotty, the messiest cry. I was devastated. They listened. They just listened and they validated. And here's what you don't do. Do not think that it is helpful to start dogging your teenager's friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. That doesn't help. Because even though your teenager might be heartbroken, there is a part of them that still deeply loves this friend or girlfriend or whatever. So don't think it helps to start piling on, be like, oh, they were terrible for you anyway. They were a piece of crap. You deserve better. You're so much better than they are anyway. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. Okay? Things like, I know you really cared about them. I don't know why they would do such a thing. That was so hurtful. I'm so sorry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. I mean, if they leave a giant snot thing on your shoulder, so be it. If they want to like be ripping angry, let them be ripping angry as long as it's safe. Okay? Like punch pillows. They can throw pillows. Maybe go to like an axe throwing place. Like literally take them somewhere together where it's a constructive, safe place to get out their anger. Make a fun thing of it. But don't think that by demonizing their friend or their ex, you are connecting with them, because you're not. You're treading on a part of them that still truly deeply cares about that person. So don't do that. Okay. So you want to hear their sadness, hear all of their anger, the human spectrum, the whole thing, and it's all part of the grieving process. So listen, no fixing, no judging, no shutting it down, none of those things. Then I want you to check their story with them. This is something you can ask them is, what is the story you're making up about all this? Like, what's the story you're telling yourself about all this? So my story in being cheated on was, maybe I just thought I was lovable, but I guess I'm really not. Because that was already a belief I had, is I'm not lovable. I also had a belief, because I felt so disrespected at home, that I must not be worthy of respect. And I can tell you that was true for me, because my next relationship ended the same way. I wonder why. Because I was allowing people to disrespect me, because that was my belief about myself, was I don't deserve respect. Now, doesn't matter how your teenager answers. This is not for you to judge or correct. These are little seeds that are going around, blowing in the wind in their unconscious emotional brain. By you asking the question, okay, what's the story you're making up about this? Maybe they make up like all girls are biatches, or boys are evil and pieces of crap, or whatever, doesn't matter. I'll never date again. I'm never gonna give my heart to someone again. I'm gonna like join a monastery and be single forever. Doesn't matter. Whatever. Okay. When you help them to uncover these stories they're making up, those seeds that are blowing around in the wind in their unconscious brain won't take root, because their prefrontal cortex, their intellectual brain, is developing. Okay. And this happens in the adult brain as well. Half of what runs around in our emotional brain doesn't serve us, but we don't know about it. So by you asking these questions, you're simply allowing them to take some of those little seeds, and they're coming around into their conscious brain, where they are developing critical analysis and decision making, to hear themselves say what's true for them in the moment and allow themselves to decide whether that's a story they want to have or not. Okay? So this isn't about you judging the story. It's just about what's some of the stories you're making up. They might make up, I'm unlovable. I deserved this. I don't know. It's not for you to agree or disagree. Okay? Here's the second step you can do with this. And only if your teenager is ready. Do not be your teenager's therapist. If you guys are not close, don't do this. This is a book I recommend. It's called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. I know this is backwards for you. Byron Katie. Okay? You can Google that. She's got 4 questions. This whole book is about 4 questions. You can ask your teenager some of those questions if you have a relationship that can withstand that. The first question is, how do you feel when you think that? So you've asked them what their stories are, and you're not there to judge them or make them right or wrong. You can just say, how do you feel when you believe that? Or how do you feel when you think that? That's it. Let them answer. Then a second question, if you think they're ready, is that true? Now, I had a lot of data that said that was true. I was with this guy for 2 years. This was my first serious relationship. He was going to be my prom date, which now that was a bust. We were then going to probably go to university together. Like, I wasn't just grieving what happened in that moment and the trauma of walking in on him sleeping with someone else. I was grieving the dream. We had the dream. We had the dream. I was grieving all of that. So my story was I was unlovable. So if you said to me, Al, do you know it's true? I'd be like, heck yeah, I know it's true. Were you not listening? Of course it's true. Look at what just happened. Doesn't matter. Let them be in it's true. Okay? Then you can say to them, what's another version of that story that you could have that might not feel so painful? Okay? Please only do this if you are ready, because if you're trying to be your teenager's therapist, that's not going to go really well, okay? So you can Google Byron Katie, Loving What Is, her 4 free questions, okay? You can use that as a tool. I'm just looking down because I got my notes here. So here's another thing that is wildly common right now for teenagers. Their self-worth. Teenagers are looking for external validation, relationships, intimate relationships, to feel whole and valid. Their self-worth is so low. This is like an epidemic. It's crazy. This isn't necessarily about parenting. This is just like an epidemic. Teenagers' self-worth is so low that they feel like they need someone outside of their family. Because you'll be like, but I love you. I love you. Your parent loves you. Your siblings love you. Why would you need to? Because in their minds, you have to love them. You don't have a choice, like you're supposed to. So that's not validating for them. External validation is what they're looking for, and that's why they're seeking that relationship. And when that relationship breaks up, they have a story that it breaks their self-worth as well. Maybe they really are sucky and they are not lovable. So check with your teenager about their level of self-worth. And remember, doesn't matter how they answer. This is not about right or wrong. I asked a teenager the other day to rate beautiful, talented, good grades, smart, everything. Rate her own self-worth from 0 as in none to 5, like I'm a rock star. She said 0.5. 0.5, you guys. It's an epidemic in teenagers right now. So sometimes they are seeking this relationship as external validation to feel loved, okay? Now, here's the second part of this. Dr. Brené Brown talks about this, where she actually researched this with teenagers. I think she talks about in Rising Strong. It could be Braving the Wilderness. Fitting in and belonging. Fitting in is having to deny, diminish, or pretend, deny or diminish part of me, or pretend I am a certain way to feel fully loved and accepted by you. Okay, that's fitting in. Belonging is I feel fully loved and accepted by you as I'm my whole messy self. Okay? Many teenagers express that when they feel like they have to fit in at home, which means they have to deny or diminish or let go of part of their authentic self, which is emotional abandonment in themselves, to be fully loved and accepted at home, they're even more likely to seek belonging externally. Now, our brains are wired to belong. Our brains are wired to feel that sense of full love and acceptance. And unfortunately, this isn't up to you. This is up for your teenager. This is your teenager's personal experience of their relationship with you. This isn't, perception is truth. So if your teenager feels like they have to fit in at home, which I 100% I did, because the only level of acceptance was perfection. Not sure if you've tried that or not, but it's impossible. And I was like loud, chaotic, messy, extrovert, and that was like wildly embarrassing for my family. So I totally felt like I had to fit in. So I was constantly boy crazy and seeking external validation. I'm also an extrovert. External validation, feeling lovable, feeling like maybe I wasn't a piece of crap, and belonging outside of my home. Okay, so that's another concept just for you to look into, Dr. Brené Brown's work around that. Here's the other part. I want you to normalize sexual development. Can we please already? normalize sexual development. Can we normalize for our teenagers that it is natural to feel awkward in their bodies as they're developing body awareness, to feel sexual urges and drive? They're a walking hormone. That's okay and good and normal. It's what maybe they do with that you want to have a conversation about. But part of this drive, perhaps, some teenagers are super kinesthetic, like they just feel it. They're like sex, all the like, woo, touch, yay, ding, 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 ding. Other teenagers don't experience it that way, okay? There's not a right or wrong way to do this. But when you normalize sexual development and those urges, it helps them to not feel so dirty and shameful. Then you can talk about being in relationship. And like, especially if their love language is touch, which mine was, and there was no touch at home unless it was very negative. Just being touched, like he and I used to stand in the hallway at school, like, or we would just hug all the time. So that filled my love language for touch that wasn't met at home. Okay. You can also, the 5 love languages, it's a free quiz online. If you have a relationship that will withstand it, you can do that with your teenager to help them fill their love language. They might be seeking, you might be like, I do everything I can to love you. I am bending over backwards to love all over you. How can you possibly not feel loved at home? I get it. I know you're trying. So do the 5 love languages quiz, because we often will give love in a way that works for us, but that's not the way that their brain is wired to receive love. So they might be seeking relationship with someone who unknowingly is giving them that need that you didn't realize. I don't know how you would known that they want at home, okay? So love languages is a part of that. Normalize sexual development, because it might stop them from seeking some of the relationship need, and you can have a conversation about that. Talk about healthy relationships. Now, I did a previous video. I encourage you to go and watch. It's here on my Instagram. It's also on my YouTube. 2 of them, actually. One is how to help your teenager develop healthy relationships. It's an article on my website as well, alipayne.com. You can just hit the little search magnifying healthy relationships. It'll come up, okay? Tips to help your teenager develop healthy relationships. If we're not talking about this at home, then we can't really go blame our teenager for creating all of this like carousel of trashy relationships in their life. Right? They also will repeat what's modeled for us at home, at least in their beliefs. I'm not saying you have a trashy relationship. I'm just saying it's crazy what our teenagers make up in their brains as truth. Okay. So the other thing is, the other article and video that I did is 10 ways to help your teenager improve their self-confidence and esteem. And quite frankly, right now, I don't think there's a more important mission as a parent, given the epidemic that I'm seeing in low self-esteem and low confidence in your teenager. You'll find it on my YouTube. You'll find it's one of my most popular blogs. You'll find it here on Instagram. Okay. So developing healthy relationships. There's 2 things I want you to do about this. Rather than saying to them, well, that person was trash for you anyway, or you shouldn't see them, because the minute you make a platonic or a romantic relationship, you make it wrong, bad, and forbidden, you've just put a bullseye on that person. That's all they're going to want to do is go spend more time with them. Of course they are. Okay. So this doesn't work for you to say, well, you can't go see them. That's a very toxic relationship. That doesn't work. Good try. The biggest leverage point you have is to have a conversation with them about what is a healthy relationship. Literally open-ended. What does a healthy relationship look like? How do you know? What words, phrases, and behaviors are present in a healthy relationship? What do you like about those? You might find out some information about love language stuff by asking that. What do you like about those things? What's meaningful to you about it? Okay? Just open-ended questions. What does trust mean to them? And I'm going to tell you, most adults don't even know how to define trust. In fact, it's one of the largest concepts in relationships in the brain that Dr. Brené Brown has also done a bunch of work on. You can Google her video, The Anatomy of Trust, Brené Brown. She uses an acronym called BRAVING that I won't go into. It's all in that other video that I made, how to help your teenager create healthy relationships. But helping them define, like, what is trust to you? How do you know you feel trusted? How do you know you trust someone else? What words, phrases, and behaviors are present when trust feels present? Then talk about respect. What does respect mean to you? How do you know? What words, phrases, and behaviors are present in respect? Do you get where I'm going here? You are not assessing their relationships or telling them whether or not they can participate in them, because I guarantee you that will backfire. I talked all about that in a video I did called How to Protect Your Teenager from Bad Influences. You'll find it here on Instagram and on my YouTube channel, and you'll find it on my blog, allypayne.com. You can't do that. But what you can do is you're helping their prefrontal cortex to develop by giving them a lens through which to assess relationships based on their assessment of what trust and respect look like. What does a healthy relationship look like? How do they want to be treated in a relationship? You are helping them to develop a strong lens of what that's like. And to the degree that you let them answer and not try and fill in their answers, you become that safe person to help them do this. So it's critical to ask them these open-ended questions without trying to prejudge it. Now, there's another part of this that goes on, okay, is emotional boundaries. Because relationships that break up infrequently, just that's it, communication's done. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So the texting and the Snapchatting and the video messages, those might continue even after the breakup. And it might not always be a good thing. Also not for you to judge. But here's what you can say to them. How do you feel when you get those messages from him or her or whatever the pronouns are? How do you feel when you get those? And then it's not up for you to answer, but you can support them to learn to set emotional boundaries. So whether they were the breaker-upper or the breaker-up-e, you can say to them, what if you ask them to just take a break? Maybe just some space would be good right now. They might not agree and they'll be like, no, I can't do that. You don't know. It's fine. Let it go. Okay? Because that feels very final. And in the grieving process, okay, that you can't jump from like anger to complete cutoff. Like even walking in on my boyfriend sleeping with someone else, you're not going to believe this, but we actually healed all of that. And 5 years later, we were roommates with some other friends. We were roommates in a large city when we were all going to school. You know, I didn't have the same respect or trust for him, but whatever, man. So you can heal these things, but it's not instantaneous. So this constant stream of texting and snapping that seems to keep undermining your teenager's healing, and again, that's not for you to judge, you might want to help them understand what an emotional boundary is. Because there's a story going on under there that stops them from setting it. So first of all, there's that part of them that still deeply loves or cares about this other person that isn't ready to disconnect. It's too final. The pain is too much. The story might be, but then, because teenagers are crazy right now and people pleasing, the story might be, but then they'll be even more mad at me. Or then so you just ask, what would it look like to give yourself some space? Like maybe they have to block them from their phone if this person won't stop, right? Maybe you have to say things like, what would it look like to give yourself some space to feel and heal? But then let them answer, okay? And if they're like, well, I can't just cut them off, you can be like, so you could ask them, what's your story about that? Because again, if they're struggling in the self-worth department, they're not going to want to set emotional boundaries because they're more worried about what someone else is going to think about them, that now they're being mean, when they already don't think they have enough value to set an emotional boundary, which might look like blocking for someone or asking them for some space but you know, I have a lot of parents who message me to say this is like a super toxic relationship and it just keeps going on, like it won't end. And my teenagers really impacted after these communications. Then talk to your teenager about it. How do you feel after these messages? How do you feel after these conversations? Because there's a part also of the grieving process of denial that's tied in there. Let's just pretend that that didn't happen. Let's just keep it the way it is, because that feels easier than being with reality. Okay? So help them set emotional boundaries so that they understand it is okay for them to say, no, I can't talk to you for a while. I'm gonna block you for a little bit, because this goes on social media all the time, right? Social media, they end up still following each other. Like, how many times have you done that on Facebook? Looking up your exes, following what they're doing, because it's hard to let go. Well, your teenager is growing up in an era of digital communication and social media. So it's likely that they do that too. They're going to check out the Insta, the Snap, they're going to and you can just be like, how do you feel when you do that? That's it. Don't judge it. Let their critical analysis and decision-making be developing as you are asking these questions, okay? That it might be a good idea to block them on some of those. It might be a good idea to just unfriend them for a little while so you're not so tempted to go and check out their account, see what they're doing, so you can miss them more, right? Okay, so that's the things that I wanted to let you know about the teenage breakup. The last thing is, this is very cultural. And by that, I mean like a mini culture. So the friend group that they are a part of, it might be very normal to have a romantic partner in their friend group. Now, the science behind how much we're impacted by the people we hang out with is fascinating and very real. So if all of their friends are dating, they're probably gonna date even if they're not ready, because that's what their influence group is doing. So it might be a part of their influence group that says you're not whole and complete unless you're dating. It could be just their best friend is now dating, and now they feel like a third wheel or left out. So now they've got to go have a romantic partner to be close to that friend again. That could be the loss. It could be the loss is that they feel like their best friend is leaving them now because they're dating someone. So there's loss involved in all kinds of this and grieving. I also want you to look at what are their main influences. Look at on social media, on Netflix, on YouTube, etc. How movies, how romanticized these teenage relationships are, that it's not true. Like, yeah, they make them look like there's some struggle, but it's not fully real. And so this is about asking them, what do they see in that movie that they liked? What about that relationship worked for them? What didn't they want? What felt unrealistic? Like, actually ask the question, because this is the lens through which our teenagers are using as normal in today's world. And it's not always something that you want them to use as a measuring stick, but we can't get mad at our teenagers when they're looking at things like music videos, full sexualization of bodies all the time, movies, television shows, etc., that portray they are not whole and complete without a boyfriend or girlfriend or an intimate relationship. This is also where you might want to communicate things around your value system, about dating, about sexual relationships and intimate relationships before marriage, or etc. Like, I'm not here to judge. Whatever is feels right for you. Just be careful that this isn't a lecture or a projection of condemnation, and that it's a conversation, okay? I hope this has been helpful for you. This is extremely, extremely hard for parents, for your heart, for your teenager's heart, whether it's a romantic or a platonic relationship. There is a whole grieving process that's necessary. And when you can be that safe person for your teenager, whether they are the teenager that's gone dark and spend a whole lot of time in their bedroom and they don't want to talk about it. Like, some teenagers want to talk, extroverted, and be with you. Some teenagers want to be in their bedroom and they will never talk about it. And that's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean they need external support, but they might. This might have rocked their world so much that they do need a counselor or a therapist or a coach to help them through that. And that's okay too, because the stories they have going on are so powerful, which is how our brains operate, okay? that it can be challenging for them. But if you're not part of that healing process, like as in they're sharing it with you, you are still an intimate key part of it by being a safe person in it, by making it okay for them to go dark and have alone time in their room, by making it okay if they miss sports or maybe a school for a day because they're so devastated. Like I was so devastated during my breakup. I don't think I went to school the next day. Didn't go to sports that week. Like I just couldn't even be around people because I identified as being someone's girlfriend. I identified as being worthy enough to be in a relationship. And that was too hard to be with around people who now I wasn't that person. I had to work through my own new identity that I was single. I was going to grad by myself 2 months later, not with a date, the person that I dreamed of going with for 2 years. So there's a whole identity that's wrapped up in this as well. Okay, that can be really hard to be with. It's all part of the grieving process. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm grateful that you're here. Again, if you're not in my 5-day challenge, these are some of the things we're talking about. So get to my website, alipayne.com, or hit the link in my bio, and you will find Join the 5-Day Challenge right there. I hope to see you there. If not, thank you again for being here, for commenting, for liking, and for sharing my content. I'm extremely grateful for you and this community of courageous, caring parents that I get to be a part of every day. Be well. I will talk soon.